I'm working too hard for these things. I gotta subscribe.
Crash's sister. This game she's going to be riding on a tiger. She's a playable character. And over here we have Tiny the Tiger, who was one of the characters in Crash 2. This is Crash in Time, so this time we're going to be fighting against Tiny in the Coliseum. He's a Roman gladiator.
Hey Mark, what's going on? We'll give you
Great footage. Thanks for the underground footage. We'll put you in the next underground credits, okay, huh?
Welcome to the Fruits Dojo. I trust that you are here to redeem yourself.
There's a whole new genre of interactive music video games. Here's an inside look at how it began.
Are you ready, young one? I shall give you my best.
People always have kind of a wall between music and life. I'm a musician, so I don't feel any wall between music and me. So I want to erase this kind of wall.
Kick, punch, it's all in the mind. If you wanna test me, I'm sure you'll find the things I'll teach ya. Sure to beat ya. Nevertheless, you'll get a lesson from teacher. Now kick.
So if people can perform without thinking about the music, maybe it's happy and fun.
As a boy, Masaya Matsuura loved playing keyboards in Space Invaders. As a musician, he played in a rock group called Size and composed for TV and radio ads. But he always felt he was creating for everyone's needs but his own.
I discovered that if the creative motivation only comes from the outside, all the efforts are just to fill the order. In the end, nothing of your true self ever comes through.
So in the mid-90s, he dissolved the band and stopped commercial work, and he staked everything on combining music and video into a new kind of game. It wasn't easy.
But I cannot say that the production proper went smoothly. We didn't have anybody with console game experience. Some of the companies we were working with almost went out of business. One after another, there was all kinds of accidents and problems. A key team member even ended up in the hospital after a traffic accident. The entire 2 years were like that.
But in December of 1996, the world's first next-generation interactive music video game was released in Japan. It opened up a new genre, paving the way for games like Spice World and Bust-A-Groove.
Yo, yo, yo! Check this out! It's party time in the house!
For those who perhaps haven't heard of Papa, it's a rap game. Basically, the player follows the short word sung by the sensei and presses the button in rhythm to the rap. The rhythm of the sensei is shown on the top of the screen as button symbols. The player just has to follow along and press buttons as shown to the beat. If the player presses the wrong button or is off the beat, the score will go down.
Check this out, come on and bring it down!
The game actually has 4 different soundtracks for 4 different player ranks, woven into a single track. As the player rises or falls in rank, the track changes appropriately in real time. It's a breakthrough in programming.
I am a chicken from the kitchen, and I ain't kidding, although nothing is written. You are a chicken from the kitchen, and you ain't kidding, although nothing is written.
That's why I chose PlayStation. This kind of technology is only for PlayStation. To attain a cool rank, simply following the rhythm of the sensei is not enough. The player must be able to ad-lib beyond the rhythm and button commands of the sensei. So I will show you how to get cool.
Parappa won more than a dozen awards, including Game of the Year in Japan and Most Innovative Game at E3 and the Computer Game Developers Conference. Sales took off worldwide, and today it's available in nearly 50 countries.
Did you check the toilet on the right? Did you check the toilet on the left?
Is it still a video game if there's no competitive scoring? To Matsuura-san, there's only one way to measure it.
It's all yours. That was close.
You still like to enjoy the game?
Yeah.
When you make a game, all you start with is a blank piece of paper and a few big ideas.
I wanted to see a game that was in full 3D, but where the primary focus of the game would be interaction with the enemies. To the best of my knowledge, that had never been done before.
How do you end up with a video game world that pulls you in? How can you make it stand out from other games? Your team will hit development walls and have to search for breakthroughs. Here's the inside story of the making of Spyro the Dragon in an exclusive tour for the PlayStation Underground.
The most difficult part was the beginning, determining what kind of game we were going to do after Disruptor. Craig Stitt said, you know, I've always wanted to do a game about a dragon.
I've always loved dragons. To me, they are just the greatest creature. I mean, it's the combination of a Tyrannosaurus Rex with wings and breathes fire. I mean, you've got the best of everything in a dragon.
And immediately everybody said, yeah, that's it. Because dragons can fly, they can run, they can flame, they can jump, they can do anything, and they're cool.
In the game, you play the part of Spyro. An evil creature named Nasty Nork has cast a spell turning all other dragons into crystal statues.
You have three major objectives in the game. The first is to rescue all the dragons. The second is to collect the treasure that Nasty has stolen from the dragons. And the third goal is to defeat Nasty himself.
Designer Mark Cerny had come from such games as Disruptor, the Crash Bandicoot series, and Marble Madness. In Spyro, he had new ground he wanted to cover.
I had this idea that you could do a panoramic 3D engine on the Sony PlayStation, where there wouldn't be any fog in the distance. And I challenged Alex Hastings to create such an engine.
Most of what it takes to pull off that sort of panoramic engine, it comes around in, assembly draw routines.
In fact, I told him very specifically how to go about creating it. He blew me off and did something totally different. But it turned out much better than what I had in mind.
Engine to draw the environments has broken down into 7 different little renderers that work on different levels of detail of the environment to try to keep this, the fact that you're seeing a quarter of a mile away and what would be tens of thousands of polygons into something that's more manageable.
Because not only did you have these big, long views where anything in the universe could be seen from afar, but also he created an engine where you could have detail on the objects that were close.
The real trick is that in every transition we try to do a fade or morph transition, something where you're not going to see it.
I think there's never been a console video game where you got both of those. He had to write some damn good code.
The fact that this game is coded specifically for the PlayStation is probably our biggest advantage. When you compare it to, say, a PC or other console platforms out there, the PlayStation is really different. The things it can do well is it can draw an enormous number of polygons. Some of those guys have 5,000 polygons in them. You'd never try to do that on any other console.
Well, I think the flying levels really were a surprise for us. Everybody loved it. We made sure that we had more of them.
I played the flying rounds, the free flight rounds over and over again, trying to get through all the obstacles in the shortest amount of time and trying different paths to see if I can beat the record. You can easily waste an hour or two doing that and not even realize it.
The DualShock analog controller really allows a great feel and a good freedom of control. You can just point it any direction you want and you're going there. And they've integrated the feedback in there too. You can ram yourself into a wall and you'll just feel it come back at you.
The game also has features especially for hardcore gamers.
In every single instance where you can super dash, there is a secret place you can get to. That is our challenge to all the really good players out there. Not to go out and buy a hint guide or read about it in the magazines, but to find out for themselves where it is they can go or what it is they can do.
Another feature that pulls you in is the soundtrack. Spyro includes some well-known voices.
Don't worry, the only one who's gonna be trapped is him.
When we were putting together the voice of Spyro, we talked to Carlos Alazraqui first and last, as it turned out.
I think we went through about maybe 5 or 6 versions, where
He was like really, really young and had Lionel up in the nose, and
then he was like really cooler and older, and they actually recorded something like that, but then they found out he was too mean.
So then we just kind of did a mixture in between the two, where it's kind of like he's really kind of a go-getter kind of guy and kind of tough, but really kind of nice.
Be on the lookout for North Commandos, Spyro.
The other big voice part of the game is with the dragon. One of the voices that we've relied upon a lot is Clancy Brown, who's a well-known actor who was in Starship Troopers.
The dragons are freed from their crystal, and then they give him advice and tell him how to play the game cryptically, to teach him how to fly, how to use the buttons, where to go, what to say, who to do, who he has to fight, who he doesn't have to fight.
As soundtrack and gameplay come together, is Spyro a world that pulls you in? It's already had an effect on the team.
Actually now, if you walk around the office, a lot of people speak in the voices of the characters.
What?
Album.
Oh!
Ow.
You can put that on the tape, I know. That's the only thing I'm going to have on there.
What's on developers' minds? PlayStation Underground takes you inside the world's biggest annual gathering of video game developers to find out
Every piece of intelligence in the known universe that it has anything to do with gaming is circling this little small area right now. It's kind of like being in the nucleus of an atom.
I'm Jennifer Polka, and I'm the director of the Computer Game Developers Conference, now called the Game Developers Conference as of today. Our primary attendees are programmers, artists, audio guys, sound engineers, musicians, producers, level designers, people who put together the games.
Well, I'm the mighty fat man himself, and I write music for computer games. Hopefully what we're going to do is meet with a bunch of publishers, and a bidding war is going to start up, and it's going to propel us to the top.
Well, I'm really excited about the game development business because it's growing hugely. We had about 30% more people pre-registered this year than last year. Some figures say that it's about $9 billion in games this year. I've heard up to $18 billion depending on who you talk to.
We're making this gladiatorial death race fighting hoverboard game for the PlayStation called Slip Groove.
Currently we're working on a Sony PlayStation title called Monkey Hero. It's action-adventure top-down 3D worlds with 2D characters, and you basically go around exploring, killing monsters, fighting bosses.
But at the same time, game developers still have the same ethic that they've had since the start, which is a strong ethic of sharing knowledge and ideas with each other and sharing technology.
But now I can actually do smoke and fire in real time, and that'll bring more life to the game.
I've been in a number of businesses, and this business, more so than many of the other businesses I've been in, everyone really, really, really wants to do this.
So far it looks like there's a few more women than there were last year. Normally it's about 95% male, but I've seen a bunch of women in the lobby.
I came up with a game concept basically that is totally new, and it's basically aimed at a totally untapped market.
And that's good for the industry because the industry needs to be able to put out games that everybody can play, and part of that is having women involved in the design process and the programming and production processes.
There's sword fights, there's gun fights, there's Wild West, there's horses, there's bodice ripping, there's kissing, there's, all sorts of really fantastic adventure, but it's from a very romantic point of view.
If you want to be a developer, the first thing to do is to come to the CGDC and meet a bunch of people. For one thing, it'll give you connections, but probably more importantly, it'll give you a sense of what people actually do when they develop games. It's not an easy job to have.
My favorite thing as a PlayStation fan is Shorty's move from Bust a Move.
E3 is the year's biggest video game trade show. This year, over 140 new PlayStation games went on display in Atlanta. We know you'd like to play these games yourself and see which ones are hot, but you're about to meet 4 industry pros who are actually paid to do this. Here's an exclusive look at some of their personal favorites.
Hi, I'm Mark Vitello. I'm Mike Foster. Chris Seehofer. And I'm Chris Colon in the third-party evaluation department of Sony Computer Entertainment. PlayStation Underground has asked us to check out some of the hottest games at the show, so let's take a look.
Hi, we're over at the Konami booth, and my first pick for the show is Silent Hill from Konami.
You play this guy who's lost his daughter. You were driving into town involved in a car crash. When you wake up from the car crash, your daughter's disappeared. The only problem is, so is the rest of the town. You can see fabulous lighting effect now. This works very well in the game to build tension. As you're exploring areas, you can't see beyond the range of your light, which means the monsters are going to leap out at you and be almost on your toes before you see them. Look for Silent Hill in a store near you this Christmas.
We're here at Sony Computer Entertainment America's booth, and my first pick is Spyro the Dragon.
This is Spyro the Dragon, developed by Insomniac Games and Universal Interactive Studios. It's a full free-roaming 3D action platform game. Some of the really cool things about this game is that it has these beautiful panoramic worlds, all 3D, with great 3D characters and animation. As Spyro the Dragon, you can flame, roll, glide, fly, so your goal in Spyro the Dragon is to go around and free all these crystal dragons. We think it's going to be a great game, so look for it in September in a store near you.
My first pick of the show for hottest game has to be Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver. Let's take a quick look at it.
One of our greatest features is that the whole world is streamed together. So you get this non-loading, continuous world where every level is just really super rich with detail because we're constantly bringing new data in. So it gives you this very immersive environment. As the game goes on, you acquire mechanics which make you explore more nooks and crannies of the world. So the game kind of blossoms from a hub and spoke kind of a model. You have lots of player mechanics. You can stab vampires through the heart and impale them, suck souls to gain energy like she just did there. Check out our game Soul Reaver Christmas '98. Hope you love it.
We're here at the Fox Interactive's booth. My next pick for the show is N2O.
Basically, we are pushing the PlayStation to the extreme in terms of lighting effects, morphing, 22 aliens, 15 weapons, numerous ways of killing enemies. Every time you kill a beast in these tunnels, it will release a burst of nitrous oxide, which your tunnel runner is powered by. So the more you kill, basically, the faster you go. Obviously, another big feature is soundtrack. We have Crystal Method that have produced 10 tracks for the game, 4 exclusive to our product. This Extreme Shooter is coming out middle of June, so look out for it. It's going to be really hot.
We're here at the Psygnosis booth for my next pick, Colony Wars Vengeance.
It's a space combat epic game which takes what was great about the original game and does it even better second time around. We've got feedback from the original game and really drew up a wish list of everything people would want in a sequel to the game. So we've now got a whole new number of new crafts. We've got 50% new weapons. This isn't just a straight shooter. We've got characterization in the game. We've got these new mech creatures coming through, new bosses that you need to destroy. Colony Wars Vengeance is coming out early November '98. And as far as we're concerned, and everybody else who's been to this stand, this is the must-buy game for Christmas.
My second pick for best game of the show is from Psygnosis, and it's ODT.
I'm presenting ODT, which is our new 3D action adventure game with a strong RPG part. You have the choice of choosing between 4 characters. Everything is based on a motion capture engine. You have 4 weapons, a lot of spells to launch. And of course, depending on the way you live the adventure, you will accumulate some experience and you will be able to customize a lot of your character, improving weapons, constitution, spirit. You will be able to use a lot of the background, like this turret, for example, in order to clean very difficult areas. So the game is in beta now. It should be released near the end of the year, probably in November '98.
We're here in the Konami booth with the greatly anticipated Metal Gear Solid. This game definitely promises to live up to all the hype that was generated last year.
Probably the coolest game here at the show at E3. You play a character called Solid Snake. He's a genetically engineered super soldier with the aim of infiltrating an Alaskan base to stop nuclear missiles launching against the US. There's some great enemies in this game with telekinesis that are throwing objects at you and shooting you at the same time. Plus, we are making some really cool usage of PlayStation hardware. The DualShock controller, for example, every time you're spotted or shot, it's going to vibrate. Plus, there's some other hidden things we can't tell you about right now. You'll be able to see Metal Gear Solid for PlayStation in stores this October. Keep an eye open for it.
Okay, we're here at the Atlas booth for my third pick of the show. It's called Brigandine, and it's a strategy RPG.
Today we're checking out Brigandine, which is developed in Japan. Some of the features will be that has 3D battle scenes, has 50-some hours of gameplay, has all the elements of strategy and RPG mixed into one, which makes it a really good game. It's like the best of both, where it's like a combination of ogre battle, tactics, ogre, Final Fantasy tactics, that type of genre, and a little bit of your traditional PC type simulation, whereas you control your armies, vast armies, go to different kingdoms. This is going to be available in Christmas. You guys should all check it out. It's a great game for hardcore RPG gamers. It's like a dream come true.
Another one of my favorite games this year at the show is Colin McRae Rally from Codemasters.
48 tracks, all unique, end-to-end, representing the whole of the world rally series.
12 different cars, including 12 classics. Very intense physics model built around the original Toka engine. There's rolls, there's crashes, there's deformation of the car and damage. You have to rebuild your car during the service stages, so it's as much a strategy element within the game as the handling your own ability to drive the car. So it'll be in stores later in the summer. You check it out. It's a great game. It's the best.
That's it from E3. Those are some of the hottest games. See you next year. Welcome to Project Wormhole, Part 2. Last issue, we learned how game objects are created and brought into the game environment. Now it's time to create an environment for our objects. Wormhole will take place in a tunnel filled with obstacles. We'll draw the tunnel using texture map polygons, just like any other object in the game. Most game objects are small enough that you can see them all at once, but the tunnel is far too large for that. We need to break it up into manageable sections so that we only draw the part that is in view at any given time. This makes the representation of the track very small. We only need to store an ID number for each successive section and can make very long tracks without taking up too much memory. Also, how will we generate different levels in the game? One solution is to make prefab sections of the tunnel and then join them together to form a continuous track. Our world design problem has now been reduced to settling on the properties of each tube section. Now, let's plan camera control. As the car flies down the tunnel, we'll have the camera move with it so we can see what's happening. We want to be able to switch camera angles on the fly. We'll have a fixed camera that follows the car but always stays upright, a view from the driver's seat, and possibly others. This completes our look at constructing a world. Check out the tunnel we've built, then preview Part 3. Next issue, we'll look into the physics of how objects move in the tunnel and what to do when objects collide. Don't forget, you can join the Project Wormhole discussion in the PlayStation Underground forums at www.playstation.com. Post your ideas for the game there. If we like your ideas and use them, your name just might end up in the game's credits. If you want the hottest 3D game action in the comfort of your home, you've got two choices. Pay $2 grand for a computer with a 200 megahertz processor,
32 megabyte SD RAM, 3 accelerator card, 4 gigabyte hard disk, 3 PCI slots, 1 AGP port, 4
or
megabyte
pay a
video
fraction
RAM.
of that for a PlayStation. How does PlayStation run 3D games at less than 1/10 the price of a PC? Let's pop the hood and take a look at its design advantages over the PC. We'll talk in plain language and look at 4 chips. Think of them this way. One is a juggler that manages information. Another is a math brain, which recalculates it. An artist draws from the calculations, and a palette and canvas give the artist room to work. From there, the image goes onto your TV screen. Let's take a closer look at the action from CD to screen. A laser bounces off pits and bumps in the microscopic track of your CD. These are read as zeros and ones, offs and ons. The zeros and ones are translated into 3D coordinates. The coordinates are picked up by the juggler, also known as the Central Processing Unit, or CPU. It interprets the data, divides it into jobs for the other chips to do, and manages the workflow. The 3D coordinates get sent to the math brain. It's the Geometry Transform Engine, or GTE. The math brain does calculations that scale, rotate, and translate. That's not easy. The game is 3 dimensions, but the screen is only 2 dimensions. So the math brain has to flatten a 3D world onto a 2D screen using perspective conversion. Be glad you're not crunching the numbers yourself. The math brain produces a sketch of 2D data, which it hands off to the artist, another name for the graphics processing unit. The artist paints in the sketch. To have room to work, the artist gets color and texture from a palette and builds the actual image on a canvas. The palette and canvas are in a 4th chip called the video memory. From the canvas, the image is projected on your TV. Meanwhile, you're going wild pressing your controller. That makes your console recalculate and redraw new images. Everything happens at 30 million instructions per second, so let your fingers fly. A PC does this work using about $2,000 worth of components. So how does a PlayStation do it for less than 1/10 of the cost? To be fair, a PC is designed for other roles besides 3D games. And because PlayStation is focused totally on games, it can deliver maximum gameplay at minimum cost. The most important game components are more tightly integrated in a PlayStation. For instance, this chip is both the juggler and the math brain, which increases the speed. In a PC, these functions would be performed by separate components. By being separate, they're more expensive to manufacture. In a PlayStation, the different key chips share the same communications pathway for faster response. Key chips in a PlayStation have a design dedicated to gameplay action. This helps 20 of the most important gameplay effects, such as running into the distance, happen faster with less number crunching. The result is a lean, efficient game engine running right now under your hood. Let's review. Off your CD comes a gazillion zeros and ones. The juggler fields them, the math brain converts them, then the artist draws them, putting textures on a palette and building the image on a canvas. The image goes from there onto your TV. Meanwhile, your fingers can just pound away. Play on.